Okay. Hi there. My name is Christelle, and I work for an organization called North Mountain Wildlife Rescue. And with me today is...
Hi, I'm Forrest.
This is my son Forrest, who also helps out at our organization. So let me tell you a little bit about North Mountain Wildlife Rescue. So we are a nonprofit organization. We are located right here in Winchester, Virginia, in Frederick County. And at North Mountain, we have three primary things that we do. The first thing we do is wildlife rescue, which is pretty obvious from our name. So what we do is we take in injured and orphaned animals, native animals, not like cats or dogs. These are animals that are native to Virginia that live out into the wild. So things like possums or rabbits. And if they're injured, people bring them into us. And our goal is to rehabilitate those animals and get them back out into the wild, because that's where they belong. Wild animals don't belong, living in captivity as someone's pet. So those animals, we get them back out into the wild. That is our ultimate goal. So that is one of the things we do. The second thing we do is occasionally we get in animals that cannot be released into the wild. So for these animals, we provide what's called long-term sanctuary, which means that we care for them long-term in captivity throughout their lives and try to give them everything they need, food-wise, habitat-wise, in order to survive and thrive and live a long, healthy life. Now, some of the animals that we provide long-term sanctuary to are native species, because occasionally we get in an animal for some reason, maybe a permanent injury, or they're too acclimated to people, so we keep them long-term. We're concerned about releasing them into the wild because we don't think they would survive. And then some of the animals that we keep long-term are actually not native to this area. They're what we call exotic animals. An exotic animal is an animal that comes from another part of the world. It could be another part of the country here in the US, or it could be from across the globe in some place like Africa or Asia or Europe. So we call those exotic animals. Again, they're not dogs or cats or what we call domestic animals. These are animals that normally you would find out in the wild in different places in the world. But for some reason, maybe because they were kept as someone's pet, or maybe they were bred in captivity and sold at a pet store, they cannot be released out into the wild. They don't belong here in Virginia, so it would be a very bad idea to put them out in the wild, but they still need care. So a lot of these animals are things like tropical birds or snakes, frogs, turtles, things that some people have kept as pets. So we have quite a bit of those animals at our sanctuary also that we care for. So that's the second thing we do, is long-term care. Third thing we do is education. And that is one of our most important missions, is environmental education. We take some of the animals that we care for long-term, and we take them out to schools or to scout groups, to community venues, churches. Sometimes we go to libraries or festivals, and we teach people about biodiversity. So Forrest, can you tell me, what is biodiversity?
It's like organisms.
Mm-hmm. It's basically life. Biodiversity is all life on Earth. So anything from teeny little ants to large whales in the sea, and it's also things like plant life and fungi and even bacteria. It's all part of the biodiversity. So giant rainforest trees or tiny little dandelions that you find in your yard. That's all biodiversity. So one of our goals is to teach people about biodiversity, how important it is, and why we need to preserve it. And then we also talk about things like habitats and ecosystems, because those are essential to preserving biodiversity. Animals need habitats to live in. They need places where they can live and move around and find mates and have children and eat and drink. So, we really try to teach people, to encourage them to preserve habitats and ecosystems. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. Now, today we're making a video where we're doing an animal presentation. So we're going to bring out a few of our, what we call education animals, animals that we would normally take out to schools. These are all animals that are used to being around people. They're used to being held and touched. And we're going to talk about a very important topic today when it comes to biodiversity. We're going to talk about something called adaptations. Now, Forrest, can you tell me, what is an animal adaptation?
An animal adaptation is what an animal uses to survive in the wild, like a turtle uses its shell.
Very good. And that's a really good example of an adaptation. An adaptation is something that an animal develops. It could be a physical characteristic, like the way their body is shaped or what color they are. Or it could be what we call a behavioral adaptation, where there's something that they do. And these are all things that help the animal to survive in the specific habitats they live in. Because each animal has its own habitat. Like here in Virginia, the animals that live in Virginia here have their own individual habitats. And they are adapted. They have grown and developed over years to be adapted to their environment so that they can survive. Some adaptations help animals find food. Some adaptations help animals find a mate so they can have children. Some adaptations help animals to survive from predators that might want to eat them, or some adaptation might help the predators find food so that they can eat. So adaptations do many things, and they are essentials for animals to survive in their habitats. So Forrest, you gave me an example of a physical adaptation, a turtle shell. Turtle hides in its shell when it's scared, right? And shells are great adaptations. They help the turtle to basically suck in, because turtles don't move that fast, right? So turtles suck in their shells and they hide. That's a physical adaptation. Can you give me an example of a behavioral adaptation?
Like when a bird migrates to the south?
Yes, so that's actually a really good one. So birds don't do well in cold places during the winter. So like here in Virginia, you'll notice that a lot of birds fly south for the winter. Some stick around, but the majority of them actually go south to a warmer climate. Now, some people think it's because they can't survive in the cold and they'll freeze to death. But actually, the main problem birds have in the winter in northern places is that food becomes very scarce. And that's their main concern, is they can't survive food. They can't find food to survive for the winter. So many species of birds fly south to a warmer climate where it's warmer and food is much more plentiful. And then in the spring, they fly back up when we're warmer and we have food here again. So that's a really good example of a behavior adaptation that many, many bird species have developed over the years to migrate down south in order to survive. So we're going to start by bringing out a few of our educational animals. We have 3 of them really today, and we're going to talk about each animal, the habitat they live in, and what are some of the unique characteristics that these animals have developed, what adaptations they have developed to survive in their environment. So we're going to start with, I know, one of Forrest's favorite. Hey there, handsome.
Who's not very happy right now.
He's okay. We woke him up from his nap. So, let me move closer. So this, what is this, Forrest?
This is a blue-tongued skink named Eagle.
Yes, so this is what we call a blue-tongued skink. He is a lizard. It's not a lizard you'd find here in Virginia. None of the animals I'm going to bring out today are actually Virginia species. This is an animal that you would actually find in Australia and in some parts of Indonesia. They are called blue-tongued skinks because, why?
He has a blue tongue, which he literally just flicked out.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get him to do it. Oh, there you go. If you saw that. Blue-tongued skinks get the name because they actually have a blue tongue. So the blue tongue is actually an adaptation. It's a physical adaptation. Now, why do they use their blue? What do they use their blue tongue for us?
In nature, bright colors mean poison.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, so they use their tongue to like,
That's okay.
Explain.
That's okay. You got tongue-tied there. That's all right. So actually, Forrest was right though. In nature, bright colors a lot of times mean danger. Many bright colored species are what we call venomous. So, and other animals don't want to mess with venomous species. Now, the blue-tongued skink itself is not a venomous species. They have no poison or venom inside their system. However, the bright blue tongue kind of tricks other animals. So, blue-tongued skink living in Australia, they tend to live in forested regions or grassland type areas. They stay close to the ground. They're not really that great at climbers. They are very good diggers though. They'll actually dig into the ground and sometimes hide in the dirt, especially if it's really hot outside and they want to cool off, or if they want to hide from predators. But in Australia, they'd be hanging out in the grasslands or something, and let's say a big predator came by. So one of the things the blue tongue would do is face the predator instead of running away, because you see skinks have very short legs. They don't run very fast. He would face the predator and start flicking out his tongue. And that might make the predator think that he is dangerous, that he's venomous, and it might discourage a predator from trying to eat him, basically. So that's one of the physical adaptation that blue tongue skinks have. Another one is just their coloring. Now you'll notice he's kind of like brownish, grayish, a little bit of almost black, dark brown in there. Now, what kind of coloring would you call that? Is that bright? Is that something that's going to stand out for us?
No.
No, this is actually coloring that's what's going to blend in. So he would be on the ground, in the dirt, in the grass, in rocky areas, and this kind of pattern would actually help him to blend in with the ground, which is another thing that he would do to protect himself from predators, because he doesn't want to be found. So if he has to, he'll flick out his blue tongue, but his main defense is to hide, actually. So what do we call it when an animal can blend into their environment, Forrest?
It's at the bottom of my tongue.
C, starts with a C.
Camouflage.
Camouflage, right. So many animals in this world use something called camouflage. And that helps them to blend in their environment and hopefully help them to survive from different predators. Now, the camouflage and the blue tongue are both examples of what we call physical adaptation. So it's something about their body that has adapted to help them survive. We also talk about behavioral adaptations. And behavioral adaptation is, again, something that the animal does, like Forrest had mentioned about the birds migrating. Well, even blue-tongued skinks have behavioral adaptations. One of the things they do, and this is, again, when they're feeling scared or threatened, they have that bright blue tongue, but that's not the only defense that they have. So another thing that a blue-tongued skink will often do when they are scared, again, they'll face the predator, stick out their tongue. What he'll also do is he will inflate his head and flatten it to make it look bigger and to make him seem bigger than he actually is, because that'll hopefully discourage a predator from attacking him also, if he wants to not be eaten. So again, lots of defensive type adaptations that he has. Another final thing that he has, which is another physical adaptation, is his tail. Now, many lizards can do this, not all, but some lizards can do this, where if they lose their tail, they can grow it back. Now, in some cases, if a predator comes around, if the hissing and he does hiss too when predators come around, that's another behavior one. If hissing and sticking out his tongue and making his head look bigger don't work, what he might do is actually, when he tries to run away, he'll then face his tail toward the predator. If the predator attacks him, it will get his tail first. The tail can break off, and then the skink can run away. And the tail will actually still move for a while. After it's broken off, it'll flop around a bit, which then helps to distract the predator because they think they've got like, ooh, a nice meal there. And then the skink can run away and hide. So again, several different adaptations that this animal has to help them survive in the wild. Now, Forrest, can you think of anything else that you want to say about our blue-tongued skink today?
He's shedding.
No, actually, he just finished shedding not too long ago. Reptiles do shed their skin. It tends to come off in pieces with lizards. So actually, this one's name is Ego, and he has been at our sanctuary not too long. He's one of our newest rescue. It's only been a month or so now, and he's just doing really, really great so far. So we're going to put Ego away because we have some other animals we want to talk about today.
So next we have the scary cat.
So the next animals we'll bring out is not a lizard or a reptile. It's in a completely different group of animals we call mammals. And it comes from a completely different part of the world than our lizard Ego did. If you guys don't know what this is, it's hard to tell because she's all bunched up in a ball right now. This is what we call a hedgehog. And she's a specific kind of hedgehog. She is what's called an African pygmy hedgehog. And African pygmy hedgehogs, of course, come from Africa. She would be found in the drier regions of Africa, so things like grasslands, deserts, rocky areas, they like all that. And they're found on the ground. They're not very good climbers, so they spend most of their time on the ground. They have these really great claws that they've adapted that actually help them to dig to make burrows. And what you see she's doing right now, as she calms down, she gets a little scared when I first pull her out. As as she calms down, she'll actually unroll herself and start to come out and sniff around, and then you'll get to see her face a little bit better. But what you're seeing right here is pretty typical of pygmy hedgehogs. When they get scared, they roll up into a ball like this. Now her face is actually in here. You can't see it right now. That is a fantastic physical adaptation that hedgehogs have, where if they get scared, they roll up and they actually tuck in their whole face into their body. So they're basically one big spiky ball. Now, Forrest, why is it good to be spiky?
It's good to be spiky in the wild zone. Like predators don't attack you. Like you kind of look like a living cactus here.
So spikes are great because it makes other animals not want to eat you, because who wants to feel something spiky in their mouth? Now, in the case of the hedgehog, these types of spikes, we actually call them spines. They're not the same as a porcupine quills. First of all, they're not nearly as sharp as a porcupine's quills. As you can see, I can actually touch her and my hand's not bleeding or anything like that or cut. It's enough to be a little prickly, but it doesn't hurt me too much. Not when I touch her gently. So these spines are a great adaptation. Again, they make other animals not want to eat her, because hedgehogs aren't very big. If she comes out, you'll get to see her little feet. They're not very long. She can't run that fast. So again, her main defense is to roll up into a ball, and hopefully a predator won't eat her. Now, the actual rolling up into a ball is what we call a behavioral adaptation. The spines themselves, oh, there she is, she's coming out now. The spines themselves are a physical adaptation, because that's something that's grown, and it's actually a type of hair. We call them spines, but they're actually hair because it is a mammal and all mammals have hair, but they're a very thick type of hair that goes into a point, but it's made of the same material actually that your hair is. It's made of something called keratin. It's just, again, much thicker and kind of pointy on the end. So as she unrolls here, you'll get to see her face a little bit more. I'll bring her up close again. Oh, she's being really shy today. There she is. We call her Serafina. We rescued her a few months ago. She is just under a year now. She's almost full size. She won't grow too much bigger than this. Again, being a pygmy hedgehog, they don't grow as big as some other species of hedgehogs do. So now you can kind of see her face. You can see she has really big ears. So why are big ears good in the wild?
So she can hear a lot of things like coming from far away, and like the big nose helps her smell things from far away. So
they have a couple of neat adaptations to help them find food, physical adaptations.
Oh,
so the first one, we mentioned the ears. Now hedgehogs, pygmy hedgehogs are nocturnal animals. They actually spend most of the day lying low, sleeping, hiding underground, and they tend to come out at night. So they're nocturnal, and at night they start moving around and looking for food, basically, is their primary goal. Now, what does this hedgehog like to eat?
Bugs, berries.
Yeah, mostly bugs. They are what we call insectivores. So at night they'll start hunting around. They try to find insects, grubs, things like that. Sometimes they'll eat a little bit of plants or berries, but their main diet is bugs. So they are considered what we call insectivores. Now, these big ears are really good at night, because at night you can't see as well. And if you saw her eyes, you can see that her eyes are not very big. The hedgehog's eyesight is not the best eyesight in the animal kingdom. It's not their primary sense. They can see, but not as well as some other animals. So they rely on other senses like their hearing and their sense of smell. So the big ears help to funnel sound in. Her hearing is very, very sensitive. And that both helps her find food, but it also helps her detect if a predator is coming. She can hear them coming and hopefully hide or roll up into a ball before they get there. Now, the other thing, her pointy nose, hedgehogs have a phenomenal sense of smell. If you see closely, nice big pointy nose there, and she'll use that to sniff out food. And hedgehogs are actually very active animals. They lay low during the day, but at night they can actually travel several miles in their search for food. So they're actually very, very active animals. Now, can you think of anything else we can tell them about the hedgehog today? No? Okay. So I'm going to put her away. We actually called her Serafina.
You said that.
I did. Did I say her name already?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. So we call her Serafina. She is a female. Woo, sweetie. Come on up. All right. Say bye-bye.
Bye. Next, we have our last and biggest Well, not the biggest animal in the rehab center, but like one of the biggest.
Biggest one we're bringing out today.
Loki.
Last animal we're going to bring out today to teach us a bit about adaptations
Is Loki.
is our friend Loki. Now, Loki is obviously a snake. He is what we call, she is what we call a Dumeril's boa. And Dumeril's boa, they are in the boa family. They're not the same as a boa constrictor. They're related to boa constrictors, but they are a separate species. Although, like a boa constrictor, they wrap around their prey and squeeze. And that's actually what most snakes do. That's how most snakes hunt. That is an adaptation that they have gotten to find food, basically, eat their food. Because does a snake have arms, Forrest?
Nope.
No arms. And can they hold utensils and cut up their food or anything? No. So they can't grab their food with their hands or anything like that. So many snakes have adapted to basically catch their prey with their mouth, and then they wrap around and squeeze. And when they're squeezing to stop the heart and stop the breathing so that they can kill their prey, and then they swallow it. Now, Dumeril's boas come all the way from Africa, from the island of Madagascar. It's the only place in the world that they're found. And Madagascar has some tropical forest there. The Dumerils are actually not a tropical species, though. They are found in forested area, but they're found in the forested area along the southern and western coast of the island of Madagascar, which, while there's still trees there, it's not as moist. It's a bit more of what we call an arid region, so it's a little bit drier. So not a tropical species, but she does live around the trees, but she does not climb. Dumeril's boa is what we call a terrestrial species, meaning that they live on the ground. They don't go up into the trees much or anything like that. And if you look at her, you can kind of see she's pretty well adapted for living on the ground. First of all, let's talk about her coloring. What again do we call it when an animal blends in, Forrest?
Camouflage.
So camouflage. Her coloring, similar to the blue-tongued skink, is made to blend in. And snakes do want to hide. A lot of people think of snakes as just being predators and eating other animals. She's very active today. But snakes actually do want to hide, just like many animals do. They are a predator species because they eat meat. They're carnivores. But they're also a prey species. They're actually both because there's many animals in the wild that eat snakes. So camouflaging or hiding is both good for hiding for not being eaten, but also hiding to hide so your prey doesn't see you before you pounce. So in the wild, these Dumeril boas, they stay close to the ground, and what they do is they spend a lot of time actually hiding in the leaf litter, what we call all the old dead leaves on the ground that have fallen off the trees. And when you think about it, her coloring is perfect over that. She's got these combination of like browns and tans, dead leaves on the floor. If she was just hiding in a pile, she would actually blend in really well. So, somebody could walk right by her and not even know her. And the hiding in the leaves is actually a behavioral adaptation. The camouflage is a physical adaptation, but the actual kind of learning to hide in the leaves to hide is what we call a behavioral adaptation.
What are you doing?
Now, snakes, like we said, they don't have hands or feet, so when they eat, they catch their prey, wrap around, squeeze. Most snakes do that, except for venomous ones. And then they swallow their food whole. Now, swallowing your food whole is not an easy thing. Most people we can't do that usually. We have to cut our food up, and most animals will break their food up. Snakes, again, they don't have hands, so they don't have the ability to break up or rip up their food or anything like that. So they have to swallow it whole. Now, the neat thing about snakes, which is a really cool physical adaptation to help them eat, is that they can open their mouth really wide. Now, Forrest, how wide can you open your mouth? So about that wide. So let's say a person would be like this, where they can open their mouth about that wide. A snake has the ability, no, we're not going over there. A snake has the ability to go much wider. So while a human could do this, a snake can do this with their jaw. So what they have is the ability to unhinge their jaw. The bottom part becomes unhinged from the rest of the skull. So that gives them the ability to open their mouth really, really wide so that they don't have to break up with their food. So they swallow it whole. So really kind of cool adaptation that snakes have there. And when they swallow their food whole, that means everything. That is all the bones of the animal. If they eat, say, a rodent or something like that, that's all the hair and everything. If they eat a bird, That's the feathers going down. Another adaptation that snakes have developed is they have some of the strongest stomach acids in the animal kingdom. So that everything that goes down, all the bones, the hair, the feathers, whatever, it all gets digested. And it goes through their system. Now, obviously, you and I can't do that. We don't eat bones and things like that because we would have a really hard time digesting them. But snakes, no problem. But because they're eating everything and it's all going down at once, and it's usually a big, a big portion, they do take a while to digest, much longer than we do. So snakes don't eat as often. Generally, snakes only eat once every couple weeks. If they get enough, if they can find enough food, they'll eat once every couple weeks, and then they'll just kind of lay low and rest and digest for several days. And depending on the snake's size, smaller snakes digest a little faster, bigger snakes a little bit slower. Some snakes can even take a week or two to digest their food. So they don't eat nearly as often as most animals have to, only once every couple weeks. And actually, even if food is scarce for a while, because they can store fat and they digest so slowly anyways, and they tend to not be as active as some other animals, snakes can actually go months without eating if food is scarce and still survive, which is not something that we humans can do. So some really cool adaptation that snakes have there. She is very active today. She wants to explore. So that's just kind of some cool adaptations that snakes have. Can you think of anything else we want to tell them about our snake today? How about the scales? Are scales a cool adaptation too?
I guess.
Yeah, all reptiles have what we call scales. And scales are basically their type of skin, but it's thicker and tougher than, say, human skin or mammal skin. So the scales are a really cool adaptation too, especially for something like a snake who lives so close to the ground. Think about it, if we had to drag our body all over the ground all the time, over sticks and rocks and things like that, our thin skin would not hold up really well. We'd be getting a lot of cuts and scratches, it would really hurt. But the nice thick skin of a snake actually helps to protect them while they're having to travel along the ground. Or for some snakes that go in trees, they have to go up the bark. The nice thick skin helps to protect them. It can still be cut, but not nearly as easily as our skin have. So I think that's all we're going to talk about with the Doomarills today. We're going to put her away.
Oh, and one other thing, all reptiles shed their skin. And
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they all shed their skin, and we got a lot of really cool sheds downstairs that we might show in another video.
We'll bring them out maybe in another video.
Yeah.
So like Forrest said, another neat adaptation of reptiles is how they shed their skin. Everything sheds. Even mammals, if you have a dog or cat, they shed their hair. We shed our hair. Even our skin cells. We do shed our skin, but our skins, it just comes off in little skin cells, and they're really small, microscopic, so we don't see them. But reptiles, because their scales are much thicker, they tend to come off in bigger pieces. So something like the blue-tongued skink, it would come off in chunks, and you would be able to see it. Something like a snake, usually with a snake, it comes off in one big long piece. That's how thick they are. Again, they have some of the bigger, thicker skins in the animal kingdom for snakes. So that's all of our animals today. We hope you enjoyed the program. We hope that you learned something.
And nobody gets sick or anything.
Like everybody else, we are homebound right now, which is why we're doing this video for home. Usually we'd be going out to schools and talking about some of these things, but Forrest teacher, Mrs. Castle from Indian Hollow Elementary, hi Indian Hollow, asked us to actually put together this video because we were going to go to Indian Hollow in a few weeks and do a program, and now with everybody being home based, we're not able to. So we hope everybody is making good use of their time at home and staying safe and healthy. We're actually hoping over the next couple weeks to put out some more videos talking about different topics. So the next one, we were thinking we would do one on native species and talk about some of the animals that live here right here in Virginia. So again, I'm Christelle. This is Forrest. We're from North Mountain Wildlife Rescue. If you would like to know about our organization more, you can find us online. We have a website called northmountain.org. We also have a Facebook page, North Mountain Wildlife Rescue, if you would like to follow us on Facebook. We try to post some interesting things online, and sometimes funny things, sometimes cute things, but it's all about animals and the environment. We post educational things, and we also sometimes post pictures of some of the animals that we work with. So take care, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.